What's up, everybody? Thank you for checking out this episode of Chewin' the Rag. Before we get started, I just want to give a couple of quick shout outs. First and foremost, Serenity Landscaping Services. Guys, if you are in the Albany area and you have a big landscaping project, or maybe just you need somebody to mow your lawn once in a while, reach out to Serenity Landscaping Services at 518-331-0774 and let them know that Chris from Chewin' the Rag sent you. Again, it could be a big landscaping project. It could just be somebody to take care of your lawn for you a few days a month. I apologize. Serenity Landscaping Services, 518-331-0774. Another quick shout out, again, if you are in the Albany, New York area, Rite. Rite does plumbing, drain, sewage, all your plumbing needs. It could be as simple as your toilet won't flush, or maybe you had some pipes burst in your basement like me, and you need them to come out. They don't hit you with those weekend fees, those holiday fees that other plumbing companies might hit you with. They always try to sneak that right in the end when you're paying your bill. Rite is very honest. They're upfront and they will let you know this is what you're paying. It's up to you to pay it. Give them a call at 518-649-0921. And same thing, let them know that Chris from Chewin' the Rag sent you. If you are like me, and you are a caffeine addict, pretty much, I highly suggest Dubby. So I partnered with Dubby. They're a clean energy company. They just do powders. I have it right here. I can show you. I'm wearing a Dubby hat, literally. This right here. If you're on YouTube, you can see. I use it all the time. That's pretty empty. Probably should re-up soon. Dubby, it's jitter-free. I drink it in the morning before I have my coffee, to be honest. So I'll start with Dubby, and I really don't touch my coffee until like on my way home. And it's not because I need it. It's just because it's there. I made it, so I'm gonna have it. Give it a shot. They just introduced rather individual sample packs. So you don't have to get the tub like I have here. You can get the individual sampler. And with my code, you get it pretty cheap. So if you go to dubby.gg, grab a sample, try it. If you like it, then you can get yourself a tub. They have shakers on there. They have an anime shaker that they're discontinuing. So if you get it now, you'll be one of the few people that have one of the last remaining ones. They've got t-shirts, merch. If you do like their product and you want to support them, you can grab merch. Like I said, I'm wearing a hat right now. It's got the smiley face on it, and on the back, on the strap there, it just says "Be Better." It's whatever. It's just a little dad hat. But go to dubby.gg and use promo code Chewin. That's CHEWIN. There's no G. Dubby.gg, promo code Chewin at checkout, and you'll get 10% off your order. And then, like I said, they got the sample packs. So it's really, those are probably like $13-14, and then you get the 10% off with me. So you're paying little to nothing to at least try it out. And then if you like it, you can get the tub. While you are here, if you would please follow and support the podcast. I'm on Instagram at ChewinTheRag, Facebook.com/ChewinTheRag, YouTube.com/@CTRPod. If you go to ChewinTheRag.com, all the links are there. And if you are into gaming and watching streamers and whatnot, I also do a little bit over at Pinchworm Gaming on YouTube, which again will be at ChewinTheRag.com. If you go to ChewinTheRag.com, all the platform links are there. And whatever platform you choose to listen to the podcast on, please be sure to subscribe, rate it, leave a comment. Comments are always fun. If you're on YouTube, just leave a YouTube comment. I try to respond back to the majority of people that do comment on there. But also, I think Spotify has a comment option or a suggestion option. If you have anything at all that you would like to see, you could also email me at ChewinTheRagPod@gmail.com. I answer fan submitted, like listener submitted questions, any suggestions you might have for the podcast that you would like to see, or if you have somebody that you think would be good on a podcast that, if you have a streamer that you might like, anything at all, small business owner, something that they have something to promote and you think they'd be a good guest, suggest them. I'll reach out to them. And also, there is a link in the description of this episode to donate money to help the kids. There's a children's cancer awareness GoFundMe going on right now. and I will be putting the link right in the description. If you have a couple dollars, skip a cup of coffee, throw it toward the kids. There's a big charity event going on in September that I'm trying to help raise money for as well. So link in the description, donate your money, and thank you guys for checking out this episode. All right, and we are good. What's up, buddy? How are you?
Not too bad, man. How you going?
Not too bad. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into this episode of Chewin the Rag. My guest today is somebody who focuses on kind of bringing health to tabletop gaming and helping people who you wouldn't necessarily think of as fit when you first hear of what their hobby is. So let me introduce Jordan Yaklin, everybody. Jordan Yaklin is my guest today.
Hey, thanks, Chris. Happy to be here.
Yeah, of course. So what made you so here actually I'll let you explain this. So tabletop gaming, for those who don't know what it is, how would you explain tabletop gaming to somebody?
Yeah, so it's a really big umbrella term where essentially any games played on a table, essentially anything that's not a video game, essentially, and that could be Go Fish, and it could be Warhammer 40K, Dungeons and Dragons, and so it's again a big umbrella term. Primarily, my target audience dabbles in Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons, which are two of the more heavy hitters when it comes to tabletop gaming. As that's most of the time people like to really identify with those games. I have a few 40K players, but those aren't my niche, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's interesting because when you say it's, this umbrella term, you wouldn't think of a card game like Go Fish, as you mentioned. You wouldn't think of that. You always would assume something like a Dungeons and Dragons, Magic the Gathering, a Yu-Gi-Oh, something like that. So it's interesting to hear that common game. Like people might not look at themselves as a tabletop gamer and then go play cards every week. And it's like you
Right.
technically are a tabletop gamer. That's exactly what you are.
Yeah. Yeah. Those would be kind of classified as like your card games. And then you have your board games, which would be, Candyland and all the other popular board games. But those all fall under the tabletop gaming because by definition you play on a tabletop.
Yeah,
mostly.
that's exactly it. Yeah, exactly. What got you into tabletop gaming and those games in general?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So I've been essentially a nerd my entire life. My first exposure was playing the original Fat Boy Game Boy when I was like 3. I inherited that and I had 4 games with it. I still have those games. And then my first real dose was when I got my first Game Boy Color with Pokemon Yellow.
Yeah.
And then it was just like game over after that. And so that's just in gaming in general. And then obviously Pokemon led to the Pokemon trading card game. And then actually diving real deep into Magic and Dungeons and Dragons in right around 2016 is when I got, let's just say I mainlined it, and it got deep into the bloodstream, and so ever since then I kind of fell in love with it. And kind of going back from that, I always had this creative energy that I didn't really have like an outlet for. Like I would try to do projects and stuff like that, and I have like a creative imagination, but don't necessarily have the tools to create like models or something like that. And so D&D was like this perfect outlet for me because I can write, I can paint, I can draw, I can do all of these things with minimal skills outside of just, I guess, creative imagination. And it allowed me to channel everything into essentially even one universe. So I could paint minis for the campaign, I can draw maps for the campaign, I can write sessions or dialogue and stuff all for the same campaign. So it's all of my creative energy is being channeled into one particular medium or entity. And I found that was very liberating in a sense. So I kind of fell in love with it, specifically D&D.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. It's really, being in that role is so insane because you do kind of wear many hats. You get to create this world not only on paper, but then you get to kind of live it and lead it and invite these people into that world. And did you find so when you were first doing this, how difficult was it to find like-minded individuals so you could have a campaign?
Actually, it wasn't that hard because I was in a campaign as a player for somebody else. and he kind of needed, the DM needed a little bit of a break. And so I was like, what if we do like an alternating um, monthly session to where I DM one month, you DM the other, both separate campaigns. And it kind of worked out. And I was horrible at DMing. I didn't know anything. I jumped on DMing way too early. And normally if you're DMing, you want to do Lost Mines of Phandelver first, because that's like literally made for somebody who's never DM'd before.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, nope, homebrew campaign. And not only that, I created a Pokemon tabletop role playing game that was like really regressed 5e mechanics. Like I kind of boiled it down and I created my own stuff. I created it from the ground up. I spent an entire winter break, like 12 hours a day, just typing and typing and typing and working on this. That was so mechanically broken and garbage that it was so bad, but it was kind of fun, and I learned a lot doing it, and it's something that I've kind of have evolved. It's always been on the back burner, but yeah, learning how to DM and getting a group of people wasn't as difficult as some people might think. It's a very large barrier that a lot of
Yeah.
people don't like to step into, and
Yeah,
I
that's
kind of
exactly it.
went the hardest route possible.
I mean, from there though, kind of you would think like only gets easier because you're kind of just going in head first. Granted,
Yeah.
that's not always going to be the case, but if you're attacking like the hardest thing first, get your feet wet that way, and then from there you're like, oh, I can do anything now.
Yeah, I will say it definitely got a lot easier when I decided to just scrap the kind of like the homebrewed tabletop game that I was making and then adopt just standard D&D 5e. I still made a homebrewed campaign, but I
Mhm.
was adapting everything from the player's handbook and everything like that. And then I made it solely player's handbook, and then I expanded outward to any of the expansions and stuff. And so I learned quickly that I need to pull my reins back. And so I did that, and I was able to kind of build from there, and it helped a lot. Helped a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah, no, that's awesome. I always have trouble with that. Whenever I have an idea, I'm like, all right, now how can I get started right away? And then it's like, well, now you just kind of buried yourself because you're putting it out there that you're doing this and you've got to have something to show for it. Otherwise, you're just all talk. And it's like, oh, geez, why did I do that? Like, buy the stuff first, get the stuff written down first, and then go from there. And I'm like, nah, let's just announce it and go. And it always
Right.
shoots myself in the foot.
Exactly. Exactly. If anything, if I've learned anything from either tabletop gaming and or fitness, it's always take the smallest action possible. And so even just like you said, buying a book, or even just taking notes, if you want to start a new campaign, even just like taking notes on, brain dumping what your ideas are. Like that's a good way to get the ball rolling rather than announcing new Twitch stream every Thursday night, 4 p.m., that type of
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I was like, even with this, because I didn't have this barrier behind me, this ring light, these microphones, and I'm like, yeah, I think we're gonna start a podcast. And it's like, oh shit, now I gotta go get everything. So
Yeah.
like early on, you just asked me how many episodes they'll have. I think it was over a dozen. You'll see the videos change, and it's like, oh, this is when he got his shit together. And it's like, well, I wouldn't say that, but it's a little bit better than it was before.
Sure. Yeah. You got more shit together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I
I
got
mean, look
some
at
shit.
early JRE podcast. He does it in his
Mhm.
room. He did it in his room in his house before he got like really popular. I mean,
Right.
the whole JRE thing started because him and somebody got high in their living room and said that they should start interviewing people.
That's literally what it was. And like I took that same approach, just obviously still here, but I got to a point where I was like, when do I start investing? And then I was like, let's just do it early because it's you're gonna gain more traction. The better it looks, it's more appealing to the eye, sound quality's there. So but I definitely have that issue where it's like, oh, I have an idea. Let's go do that idea right now instead of planning. So to hear you say you took the hardest route possible, I was like, I can see that. That
Yeah.
resonates with me.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I found out quickly, you fail fast and you learn fast is kind of how I went. And it's better to fail fast. And so I did that. After a couple sessions, I realized it wasn't right. Took a couple of months off. Just decided to pick up again D&D, like the actual D&D 5e rule set, and I created my own setting. Kind of, I essentially created a campaign, a full-fledged 1 to 20 campaign centered around the story of the first Final Fantasy game, and that was kind of like the skeleton story. And then I just filled in a bunch of stuff, and it actually turned out quite well. I mean, my players had fun. I'm not saying it was professional by any
Yeah,
means,
yeah,
but
yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, as long as everybody's enjoying it, that's I feel like if everybody's having fun, that's as well as you can get it. Like people are having fun, you're getting the people there, everybody's enjoying it. So as far as well goes, I would say that's like the peak right there. And then
Yeah,
everything from the storyline and everything else, that's just kind of icing.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
you could have a great storyline if people aren't enjoying it. That it's like, what the hell's the point?
Right, right. That's when you keep them on the rails all the time. You're like, no, no, this is the story I want to tell,
Mm,
rather than me kind of guiding you through this world, kind of where we collaboratively create the story, which is how I started with the former, where it's like, no, this is the story. As I'm like, I have like the Final Fantasy walkthrough, like,
yep.
no, this is what's supposed to happen. And like halfway through it, the game itself gets really bare bones, and so I was like, scrapped it. And I was like, all right, this is what we're gonna do. Kind of feeling it out. And my catchphrase, very much Matt Mercer style, was like, give me a roll for it. You can certainly try.
Mm.
And it led to one TPK, but they did go 1 to 20, so it was okay.
Now, would you say you often draw like inspiration from video games when you
Yeah,
do this? Yeah.
yeah. I take inspiration from pretty much anything, and like, I mean, literally anything. My girlfriend and I are big into true crime, and so I was watching some stuff on like how illicit drugs are made, and I'm like, how can I throw that into my campaign? That's really interesting, and like how to turn like some underground drug kingpin type thing, like if you're familiar with Whitey Bulger, like
Mhm.
kind of using him as a character, and I call him Whitey Bugbear, and just use him as a character, and then just build up a sub arc around him, which is all kind of true crime esque, but thrown
Right.
into the fantasy setting. And then I have your typical The Witcher, all of those. I like Theros a lot. I've thrown a lot of Theros stuff into my current campaign. Norse, I'm a sucker for anything Norse, and then just kind of putting that into a pot, mixing it out, and see if it turns into something good or something shitty.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. Buddy, me and my buddy were kind of figuring out how can we get together and do literally anything. It doesn't even have to be like a crazy campaign because neither of us they want to do that. I'm like, I don't know if I have that in me, but like just like a game night. And that's why I was wondering. I was like, how easy was it? Because it seems like a group of 30-year-olds getting together for a game night is such a pain in the
Yeah,
ass. It's like, how can we do this?
for sure. I will say I was roughly 23 when it happened, and we were all in college.
Yeah.
So we all had very similar schedules, and we would meet like Friday night, something like that. None of it. We were all losers. We never went out and partied or anything like that. So we would rather sit in each other's living room and play D&D than go to the club or something like that. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's so funny you said that because literally I have a message between like me and my friends. And I'm like, you guys know we're the closest thing to like virgins you can get while still having had sex, right?
yeah,
Like we're just doing these stupid voice chats and everything. And I'm like, this is so dumb. Like we're literally losers.
yeah. No, I hear you. The buddy that kind of got me into it. He was the DM.
Uh
His He has two other brothers, and they play, and we literally play in their mom's basement. Like, it's the most stereotypical D&D party that you can imagine. And we play in his mom's basement, and we have a great time. They cook amazing food, and it's a grand old time. But it is, like you said, the most stereotypical. The only thing we're missing is a fedora, really.
yeah, right. Just like a milady.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, we tip the hat and stuff, but we just don't
Yeah.
have it.
So realistically, just because like this is all new to me, so it's kind of cool just talking about it. Could you do a campaign? You were mentioning like true crime, drug kingpins. You could kind of create any path you want. Like you could be a kingpin, technically.
I mean, as a
Like,
player,
yeah.
yeah, you would have to talk to your DM about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would play that into the backstory and have them be within the circuit,
Hmm.
some way, shape, or form, probably lower up on or lower on the totem pole, and then through their character progression, through their sub arc, have them work their way up the ranks. I actually had something similar to that happen in my previous campaign. I ran two campaigns. One was for full 1 to 20, and then I have the second one, and we're at third level.
Mm.
We play supposed to be once a month, but we play like every other month because I've been busy. Damn DM. And they previously they actually they killed essentially Xanathar. He's a beholder. They killed him and took over this it's like this massive underground thieves guild, and so they like escalated themselves right to the top. They discovered it, killed them, and took control of the thieves guild in one session. And they played it very smart. Like I didn't quite expect them to do what they did, and so they did it, and they got the thieves guild, and so they became like the faceless entity and the right hand person to the beholder. Just kind of like became the new quote unquote face, where they like
Yeah.
everyone knew who she was and nobody knew who the actual leaders were. And so they could actually still play, run, do the campaign and stuff, and then they would just check in. And every week they had a roll for profits and stuff like that. There's
Yeah.
a few businesses, so we had them do weekly business rolls. And but yeah, like so you could easily turn that into some form of story progression. Like if you came to your DM before the session, session 0, and be like, hey, I want to be a drug kingpin. I and the DM allows it, right? Every DM is different. They got their own rules,
Right.
and I
Right.
don't see there to be an issue to where the DM can kind of throw you story beats every session or every other session, like in between main beats. It's kind of when you would
Hmm.
probably do it.
Okay. And for those, when you're talking roll, so it's typically a 20-sided die, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
Just
Yep.
because, like I said, I mean, a lot of people that listen to this, for my listeners, they're really not going to know too much on what we're talking about. They might know it from like Stranger Things. That's probably
Yeah.
like the cutoff. How accurate would you say Stranger Things was? I'm sure you've watched it.
Yeah, I would say it's pretty accurate. They play an older edition, and I'm not
Mm-hmm.
too familiar with it. I play fifth edition, and I think they play first or second. I can't remember. But I'm not too familiar with those mechanics. But they're rolling dice, getting
Yeah.
all hyped up when someone rolls high or rolls low, and so I mean that's fairly accurate. I know they really changed the looks of like each season kind of has a main baddie,
Yeah.
like a
Yeah. Yeah.
Demogorgon, Mind Flayer, and all that. They
Yep.
definitely take creative liberties on that, as none of them look the way that they look in the show. And then they kind of like they retrofitted them, like they have a starter kit or whatever with like Stranger Things has their own 5e kit,
Yep.
and then I think that's when they went back and kind of reskinned everything. But
Mm.
yeah, it's I would say it's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
always wonder, just because, like I said, I've never seen it. So I've seen Stranger Things, but I've never seen the game played or anything. So it's like, I wonder how much they really put into knowing what they're talking about. And I mean, to go what, 4 seasons, I'm sure they had to do the research. So
yeah, yeah, I would say the first season is really much just like a love letter to all 80s culture,
Mhm,
and they do
mhm.
a pretty good job capturing that in a very like a weirdly beautiful sense. I was
Yeah.
really captivated with the first season, and then the second, third season were very much like cash grabby. Like you can tell they just wanted to continue it.
Yeah, yeah,
And then I felt season 4 like they really tried to kind of rekindle the flame of season 1, return back to the roots, and I thought they did a pretty good job with that. I know people hated it, but people hate everything, so
yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter. Everything, especially like finales. Whenever a show ends, the finale is always what's gonna get butchered, because it's.
yeah.
I just don't think you guys wanted it to end. To be honest, I think that's what the real complaint is.
Right, right. And every single one of us has some form of imagination to like we have
Yeah.
this image on how the show is going to end, and it is never going to live up to those expectations, right? And so you're always going to be some disappointed in some way, shape, or form because they did this instead of that. Um, and it was all because you kind of had manifested this image in your head on how the show should progress, and it doesn't.
Right. Right.
Um, so yeah, there's always going to be disappointment in some way.
I think that's a good thing though, because I think like that's what you want from like your viewers. You don't want them to know exactly where you're gonna go, and you want them to kind of form what they would do in a situation. So I kind of like want that from a show I'm watching. I don't want to be able to guess the ending.
Yeah, yeah. As long as they do it like tastefully, unlike
Yeah,
what they did with season 7 and 8 of Game of Thrones, where
yeah.
they like all the fan theories were all pretty much accurate, and then the
Mm,
showrunners were like, "No, screw that. We're gonna subvert your expectations by completely shitting on all your theories."
yeah, right.
Yeah,
So you, I mean, the way we introduced the show, you kind of brought fitness into tabletop gaming. So what made you want to do that?
yeah. So I've been kind of a nerd my whole life,
Mm,
and seventh grade is when I really started working out and playing football, and that's when I kind of really got into sports. And so ninth grade, high school comes, we're lifting weights, and my gym teacher, who is the quote unquote strength coach for gym class,
mm,
showing us how to bench with what we call a suicide grip.
Yep.
So thumbs under the bar. And I'm sure not many people know that, but this is a quick way to have the bar land on your chest. And so 14-year-old me is looking at this 30, 40-year-old saying, that's wrong. And the fact that he's teaching everybody, all these, ninth graders, how to lift improperly, I was like, this sucks. And then sophomore and junior year, our football coaches were our strength coaches. Like all my high school, every coach was the strength coach, right? There was no dedicated strength coach. And so my football coaches teaching us how to deadlift incorrectly, stopped coaching deadlift because people were getting hurt. And I'm like, you got all these people that don't know what they're doing trying to coach complex lifts to an extent,
Right.
and people are getting hurt, and so they're not like reaching their full potential. And so my passion was to move forward and through schooling do like strength conditioning to correct the wrongs of my forefathers, so to speak.
Hmm.
And I wanted to be specifically a high school strength coach. And then graduated on Star Wars Day, May the 4th, 2019. And less than a year later, the world shut down. And so I was spending that year working part-time as a personal trainer, making minimum wage, and really not liking my life. And so when the pandemic hit, actually it was a massive opportunity because the high school strength coach door kind of closed, and I decided to kind of shift to online coaching. And I literally remember one night I was laying in bed. I used to have this bookshelf next to my bed when we lived in an apartment, and you
Hmm.
can't tell, but that first row is D&D books. Those are all D&D manuals. Second row is like fantasy novels, and then these last two rows are boring health professional development, health fitness books.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at those, and I'm like, how the hell can I blend kind of like both my passions? And I'm like, why not just try to tailor my services towards tabletop gamers? And so I kind of really spiraled into that rabbit hole, not necessarily trying to gamify things because I find that's very gimmicky and short-lived,
Right.
but just appealing to my target audience, saying, look, I'm a tabletop gamer. I know that there is a need here, to put it lightly, and I also know that you are shunned from the health and fitness community, rightfully, or you are very skeptical to the health and fitness community, rightfully so, because the health and fitness community shuns a lot of communities that really need the help that aren't inside the health and fitness community, right? The health and
Hmm.
fitness community really panders itself towards people in the community already.
Right.
And so they always have I'm up here, you're down here, you need to get up to my level. We all have the same 24 hours in the day. You just got to want it enough, whatever cliche of the day it is.
Right.
And so I'm coming here trying to bridge this massive chasm between, being able to have a healthy life and being able to enjoy tabletop games, and be that bridge to where I can introduce health and fitness at, a sustainable, realistic way that isn't Joe Manganiello being all oiled up, shirtless on Men's Health saying I play D&D.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that's cool, but you're like way up here in like the top 1%, and you have people who get out of breath going up one flight of stairs, and it's like there's a huge gap there. And so I want to say, you can live a healthy life and not do stupid, crazy stuff. And that's a very roundabout answer of me
Yeah.
answering your question, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, I see your Instagram. Obviously, we follow each other, and I can see what you do, and that's what maybe like, yeah, I definitely want to talk to, because there's people that reach out, and I see, and I'm like, nah, it's not really something that interests me too much. And while tabletop gaming might not be something that I do,
Mhm.
I understand the stigma around, being a nerd. Because I mean, I I don't really show it much, but I like Pokemon. I like my nerd stuff too.
Mhm.
So, but I also did amateur MMA fights. So like seeing you kind of combine those two things where they normally wouldn't be bridged, I was like, that's cool. I respect that. And also it is important to have these guys who might, be super hyper focused in their tabletop game, their campaigns, great writers, but they're slouched, they're hunched, they're not getting up, they're not moving. And you do a good job at giving these guys like, just you can use your body for this. You don't have to go to the
Mhm.
gym. You give a lot of good like body weight exercises and even foods and whatnot. I've noticed you do that as well, but you do it in a way that caters to them because you are one of them.
Yeah.
Whereas, like you said, it's not the top 1% guy just saying like, by the way, I also play this, and it's like, who cares?
Right, right. And I mean, I definitely probably have more experience lifting weights than your typical what you would expect a tabletop gamer to
Yeah.
be. And I don't, and that's the thing. Like, I'm not trying to get you to do what I do. I'm trying to get you to do what you want to do.
Right.
And I like to say that I want you to build strength so that way you can do things your characters can do. And so, getting that could be like the bodyweight workouts you talked about. It could be just getting 5,000 steps a day. I mean, the average, people say the goal is 10,000 steps, but when you're averaging 2,000 steps, you're not going to 5x your daily step count. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
no, exactly.
And so even just doubling it to 4,000 could be a massive task and something that you work toward. And starting off with where they are, like in the trenches. I like to say that I'm Samwise to your Frodo, where we're guiding each other through to Mordor, and just working together in it, where we're kind of in the trenches together, rather than me being up here trying to, I guess, look down at you, cast out at you. So
Right. Yeah, exactly. And you do a good job at kind of leading as well. You were talking about more recently how an unhealthy habit might be formed.
mm-hmm.
And in that same sense, you can form healthy habits. Like you just said, you're not going to get an additional 8,000 steps in a day overnight. That's just not
Mm-hmm.
going to happen. It's not realistic. But take that initial step, go walk your dog,
Yeah,
come back, and then you're like, okay, well, I'm already up. So, and then it just goes and it rolls. And these are essentially that's what you said in that video. And I thought that was really important to hear for a lot of people as well.
thanks. Yeah, I appreciate that. And it's very similar to our first conversation where I made the mistake of diving in head first, creating my own tabletop game and all that. And then I realized that was a mistake, wasn't sustainable, no idea what the hell I was doing. So I backtracked and worked on actually working in the D&D 5e world. And so a lot of times people try to do that all or nothing approach where they're like, need to work out 6 days a week and eat nothing but boiled chicken and steamed broccoli. And I'm like, cool. Well, how many days are you working out now? None. I'm like, all right, well, here you are, and here's where you want to be. Let's kind of work together, take baby steps to get to that point. And I call that the New Year's resolution mentality, where diet starts Monday.
Yeah.
Where we've all been victim to
that. Exactly. But like, that's the thing. It should kind of be like, let's put it off a little bit. Don't put it off completely, but you're not going to just wake up and want to go to the gym 7 days a week and boil a chicken and eat the spinach, whatever it might be. So just do the little bit so you don't burn yourself out. You don't get I can't think of the word right now, but discouraged. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. But you're going to get discouraged faster if you go in, especially in a fitness world. If you're with somebody, for example, and they're going a little bit faster than you, it's easy to get discouraged. So just take the initial steps and do what you can do and what you would like to do. And then from there, it all gets easier. So that's the same approach that I appreciate when talking fitness, especially.
Yeah. I actually had a client who had a very similar conversation. I think it was last week, where they started working out with their buddy, who their buddy is like, I think is a personal trainer or something like that as well. And so much different stage in his fitness career. And so he's trying to do his workouts, and he's like, not even be able to do half of them. And he said that was very discouraging because his buddy's, breezing through these workouts. He's like, yeah, because these workouts are geared for you, geared for him. Right. And so I'm going to give you workouts geared for you. And like, if there's something you don't like, we change it immediately. And so it's always starting kind of where you are, like you said, where you are realistically and sustainably, and kind of keeping the goal of, for example, you working out 6 days a week, keep that on the horizon to where we can add a day. And then 2 weeks later, we add another day. And then, before you know it, in roughly, 12 weeks, you are at where you wanted to be, rather than trying to do all that on day one. Then you'd be spinning your wheels every week. All right, starts Monday. And then 12 weeks down the road, you're at the exact same spot, rather than starting off small. It's very much tortoise in there.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's exactly what it is. I mean, I see it. I mentioned MMA, but you see guys who take one MMA class and then they're like, so when's sparring? And it's like, well, technically it's this day, but not for you. You shouldn't be coming in here sparring. Come in that day, but just kind of work on fundamentals, and then we'll get into sparring, because you're just going to get discouraged, especially in like a fight, because you're going to get hit now. Now it's not even just like about how many push-ups you can do. You're going to get punched in the face. So it's like, it's everyone lot.
Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Exactly. It's like you're sparring guys who've sparred for years, and you just came in and wrestled with me for 5 minutes. Like, it's just not going to work out for you the way you want. Obviously, we want to get you to the point where you're going to spar and feel confident and feel good, but it's never the right thing to do in the beginning.
Yeah. I actually I took judo and I did like 2 semesters of like the judo club,
Hmm.
and coming in as a white belt, and they did open mat. I believe it's called randari in judo, which judo is non-striking, so it's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
really tosses and holds and stuff.
Yep.
So I wasn't worried about getting punched in the face. But they had me up against these brown belts, but I outweighed them by like 50 pounds, and so I'm like big lunk, not knowing what I'm doing,
Yeah.
like just trying to get some form of some form of throw and stuff like that. And I'm just getting schooled because I'm like, look, I'm a white belt. This is literally my first day. You have me up against this veterans in the class. I'm like, what the hell is
Yeah.
this? All because I outweighed everybody else.
That's like a joke with jujitsu guys where you know, it'll be a brown belt, purple belt, whatever it might be. And they're like, all right, you're gonna roll with the white belt. It's fine. Just go easy on him. And the brown belt's like, oh, this is a piece of cake, but they don't tell him that he's a state wrestler. And it's just like he's
Nice.
just hugging it. It's like, dude, this sucks. Like, yeah, I'm a brown belt, but this dude's 50 pounds heavier and has a wrestling base. So it's like, he's gonna come out aggressive. He wants to prove something. It's like, oh my god, it's such a long day. That's always like the ongoing thing. But yeah, no, it's just that approach where take your time, get where you want to be gradually, don't burn yourself out. We talked about it in both curating a campaign, something as simple as podcasting, but fitness especially because now you're getting like physical. You're gonna get hurt as on top of the discouragement.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, there's a higher risk there, but I'm sure you've had a lot of people in like the podcast world or trying to get on Twitch where they're like, I need to get the perfect mic, I need to get the perfect camera or webcam and everything like that. But like you said, you're like, screw it, I'm just gonna start and I'm gonna see where it takes me, and I'm gonna invest as we go. And that's the type of mentality that you need to do, that you should do when trying to improve your health and fitness. Just go out, go for a walk, see where that takes you. If you want to go for a jog, go for a jog. Do some body weight stuff. Those are all stuff. Those are all things that are very low risk to injury. Right? You're not going to go to the gym and try to max out your bench after not having lifted since high school. You're going to try to go in and maybe do some dumbbell work, if anything, walk on the treadmill, maybe hit the machines because lower risk of injury there, and just kind of rebuild that foundation or build it for the first time and then build on top of it.
Exactly, exactly. And I've had a buddy who, he used to go to the gym with me a lot, and then we kind of stopped going, or didn't go as often, rather. And he went with another buddy, and then he's like, "Yeah, man, I'm really hurt." And I'm like, "Well, are you sore or are you hurt?" And he's like, "I'm just hurting." And my buddy's like, "Oh, that's just your muscle growth." And I'm like, I think that like you can kind of tell the difference between, "Oh, I got a good pump," and "Oh, something's wrong." Like, let's
Yeah.
not do the whole tough guy thing right now. Like, why don't you relax?
Yeah. No, I did the exact same. I did that almost exactly last week. I was on the fourth day of my 4 week, or I'm sorry, the fourth week of my 4 week phase of strength building phase, and I was benching, favorite lift, obviously, and my elbows felt weird. I'm like, damn it, I'm not supposed to deload until next week, but I was like, screw it, I'm just gonna cut all the weight in half, and I'm gonna deload this week. And I did. Luckily, I felt a lot better this week. Today was my first day back, and so I started, another phase, and I'm feeling much better. I added a bunch of weight to my lifts, not a bunch, like 15 pounds to my lifts,
Yeah,
and I feel a lot better rather than trying to push through it last week, which just increases that risk of repetitive stress injury or something like that. When you should just really listen to your body and take that break, deload, or take time off.
yeah. No, it's as important as people have mental breaks. Like, you can always tell when you need to get out of a situation, but there's such like a macho, like tough guy, I want to be strong thing with weightlifting specifically that like it's gonna get somebody hurt if they if you don't pay attention, whether it's you or if you have a lifting partner, you can get them hurt, try to give poor advice. So I just yeah, that's all it is. Just be smarter, guys.
Yeah, and I'm not immune to that. I've definitely had my
Yeah.
fair share of ego lifts and hit and failure and stuff like that. Like you said, you have a spotter, try to be smart. If you do hit failure, I hopefully have a spotter or safety bars, or dumbbells. Dumbbells are good because you can dump them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and you do you ever do anything in person with people? Do you have or are you really trying to keep it like virtual and really expand that reach?
Yeah, so I started off in person in 2016, 2015 is when I started in person training. So I got my personal training cert. and up until 2020, the pandemic.
Yep.
And I find, as paradoxical as it sounds, that online training is way more personal than in-person training. And so I really just want to stay doing online stuff. I
Yeah.
thought, because I work out in my garage, so I have a moderately okay setup. I thought about renting it out to other coaches to see if they want to do in-person stuff, so they
Mhm.
can train their clients in my garage and kind of rent it out when I'm not using it. I would have to upgrade my equipment for that. But again, I think I'm going to stay away from the in-person stuff. It's more of a time sink. And again, with you're an in-person trainer, you see that client from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. and you got to make sure they're getting their money's worth. So you give them the best workout that you can, which a lot of times means running them into the ground. And
Mhm.
then when they're, walking out the door, you say, "Oh, and don't forget to eat your vegetables." And like that's that. And then online coaching, you really get an idea on the client as a whole, like how their sleep habits are, how their stress is, their daily life, work, relationships, how their workouts are treating them. They can do the workouts whenever they want. They can do, a 7-minute workout rather than, 30 or 60-minute workout. And so there's a lot more customizability and a lot more personability that goes into just online coaching. Again, as paradoxical as it sounds, I'm not there to count reps. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, you have a good system though. I mean, even us figuring out our schedule, you have your calendar and people can just kind of book right there. So I do see how it could be one-on-one because you're making sure you get these time slots and you dedicate this certain amount of time to that individual. And then with virtual, you got your email, your social medias. So I do feel like it's a little bit more personable than some might think, as opposed to that guy you see 3 times a week at most, and it's only an hour.
yeah, yeah, and you're paying like $100 an hour.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. So I do I guess to kind of give you a peek or like what I do. We have an app that we use that we didn't create it, but it's an app that we use. It's very popular. So it's got two-way text communication on there. I text my clients daily, and then I like to have virtual calls like this. We do the initial consultation, and then I like to do monthly follow-ups. 20, 30-minute check-ins, but those are largely at the discretion of the client. Like if they're doing okay, and we just keep up the text communication Monday through Friday. They don't need to do a video call. But
Mhm.
if they're having a rough time, then we might ramp it up to like once every other week and just really touch in with the accountability and stuff. And like I said, there's a lot more communication. I'm communicating with my clients much more now than I was with my in-person clients because, like you said, you're only seeing them 3 times a week, and the only outside text would be, "Hey, I'm going to be late," or "Not going to be able to make it today,"
Yeah.
and like get your late minute cancellations. You don't get that with online coaching.
Yeah, no, that's also it's really good. And where can people find you?
Yeah. So I have our website is phoenixperformancecoaching.net. My main, really, and only social media is Instagram, and that is at phoenix.performance.coaching. So Phoenix Performance Coaching with periods in between the words. And yeah, if you wanted to email me, you can find that in the website. You can DM me on Instagram, and I'm in the app more than I should be, probably. But I tend to be pretty available. And we also have a Discord, free Discord. It's called the Phoenix Nest. The invite is in the bio of our Instagram and
Awesome. Yeah.
possibly show notes.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll make sure everything. I have all of your links and everything myself, so I'll make sure all those end up in the description. But it's just something I really want to hammer home for people because I have people who are in my friend group that may want uh just to get a little bit better at being in shape. We're all getting up there. We're all 30 plus years old, which is
Yeah.
super young, but at the same time, it's like now's the time to kind of prioritize and everything else. I got to get back into it myself, to be honest. So, and then listeners in general, just it's important, I think, now to prioritize. And we kind of saw that with the pandemic and whatnot is, get moving, just be a little bit better at getting out there and just get your heart pumping a little bit. It doesn't have to be anything too crazy.
Mhm.
And I think you do a really good job at like epitomizing that. So like you're somebody specifically that I would probably recommend. And as somebody who loves like virtual stuff myself, like obviously this podcast, we're on Zoom right now. It's definitely something I'd recommend. So I think what you're doing is great. I think it's really fun. I think it's cool.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. And yeah, it's definitely something that I think a lot of people since the pandemic are becoming more and more aware of. I'm still, 3 years out, getting people that, they've said, I had a great routine, and then the pandemic happened and threw a huge wrench into things, and just ever since then been kind of spinning my wheels. And so it's people try to readopt the routine that they had built.
Yeah.
A very common scenario is you spend all summer building up this routine to, say 5 days a week working out at the gym, and then between Thanksgiving to the end of the year, they take a day off. They take Thursday off for Thanksgiving, and they're like, oh, I'm just going to get right back into it. And then there's always this friction. There's so much more chaos with life and everything like that, a lot of stress, and they can't fit this 5 day workout week into their schedule now because of all the other things that ramped up. And so instead of dropping it down to 3 workouts, they just drop it down to 0 workouts.
Yeah.
So they do that all or nothing instead of imploding. So then from Thanksgiving to New Year's, they do nothing, eat Christmas cookies and overindulge and everything else, and then they do nothing. And then January 1st, we have that New Year's resolution. We're revamping everything up, and then they spin their wheels. And then maybe when things slow down after spring break, they catch up, because they're being outside more, so they're much more active rather than just going with the flow and coasting at times, where you could be much better off than this constant start-stop cycle throughout the year.
Yeah, and I think that's just, I don't know if that's at times right now or if that's like everybody's so all or nothing. And it's like people kind of forget rather that you can kind of just coast. And like I said, I don't know if it's just this generation where it's like grind, 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 because I feel like now more than ever, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But hopefully people, stop and live in the moment, but don't overindulge and just slowly get back to where they're going. And I do feel like the pandemic, like we were talking about, probably affected that more than anything.
Yeah.
But I think we're getting back to basics, hopefully.
Yeah, I think a large part of it is just like what you see with fitness influencers
Yeah.
and like what you see on like the magazines and all that stuff. You see all these crazy, stupid workouts that people are doing that are at an extremely different fitness level than the modern viewer, not to
Yeah.
overgeneralize, and they're like pushing all these crazy supplements that chances are they're not even taking. They're probably taking some performance enhancing drug, and then putting their face on this white label supplement saying, yes, this is what I took. And they're doing all this stuff that's seemingly insane. And they're like, oh, well, you just you got to go to the gym 3 hours a week, 3 hours a day. Like, who the hell has time for that? The
Yeah,
Rock
right.
talks about he takes the gym wherever he goes. Like, nope, people can't do that.
No.
And The Rock is pretty sure he's openly said he's on performance enhancers, but I could be wrong.
I mean, I
Anyway,
don't
probably not natural. He's like 50 something, so I don't blame him.
yeah, I was gonna say, like, I don't even like blame him if he's on
Yeah.
anything. Like you just get to a certain age and like somebody like him who obviously is still putting in the work. But
Oh
like
yeah.
once you get to a certain age, it's like just take it. Take whatever. I don't care. You're
Yeah.
not an athlete anymore necessarily. I mean, obviously he's different, but the average person who's like, oh, I want to kind of just be natty, and it's like, dude, you're 60. Like, it's okay to help yourself out a little bit. Relax.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, do what you want to do as long as you're
Right.
not breaking any rules, from any sort of governing body perspective, and as long as you don't lie about it. Those are the two stipulations that I have. I'm
Yeah.
like, don't play yourself as natty when you're clearly not, because then that's just that's a lot of misinformation that we see, where you see these guys that are parade themselves as natty with very much superhero like physique, which a
Yeah.
lot of these superhero actors are saying they're natural. Then you get your 17-year-old who is reading this in the magazines or seeing this on YouTube, and they're like just working their asses off to get to that point, and at the very much detriment to their own health because they're doing more than what they should, and they create this unrealistic expectation. I know there's a lot of talk about female body image and unrealisticness. With all of that, there's very much something similar. I'm not going to say it's the same, but there's something similar with males and unrealistic physique through performance enhancing means.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, women obviously are going to have that worse because that's just the way it goes. But there is that with men where it's like, how do I look like that? And it's like, well, you got to get some stuff that you probably can't afford right now on the dark web. It's
Yeah,
just not
exactly.
worth it, but nobody's going to tell you that. So I
Yeah.
don't know, go lift weights. They'll just lie to you. Just go to lift weights.
Yeah. They'll say it's all attributed to their 4 a.m. morning routine.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, okay. and then your 5 a.m. shot that you're not talking about, but that's okay.
Exactly.
That's fine. All right. So
Exactly.
before we go, one very important question. Gen 1 starter.
Mm. Swolmander. Yep. I tend to go fire. I normally will play through each generation more than once,
Yeah.
and my first go-to most of the time is fire, and then it depends on the next. I might do water, might do grass.
Yeah.
But I tend to be the more basic side. Well, as you can see, I kind of like just fire in general.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Grass. It's always grass for me.
yeah. Grass
Always
is like
grass.
they're like just the tanks, you
Yeah,
know.
that's what it is. It's just like it's always grass, and then I actually think I do fire last every time. I'll go like grass, water, fire every time.
Interesting. Yeah.
Except Gen 2, I started with water.
Okay. Yeah. Totodile.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I find that there's a huge lack of fire Pokemon, especially early on. So that's why I'll pick the fire starter,
Yeah,
and you can catch you can catch Magikarp, and that's one of the best water Pokemon in the game. And so
right.
I'll have that, and then whatever the rest of my party looks like.
Grass for me, Gen 1 was just like grass was kind of like the easy route as a kid because like you fight what Brock first, and then it's like you got your Misty, and then it's like Lieutenant Surge. Grass is such a breeze.
Yeah,
And
it's like
it's
easy mode.
yeah. I think as a younger person, that's what that was. It was like, how can
Yep.
I just fly through this?
Yeah. I mean, now it's all easy mode, so
Yeah, it
you can do
really
whatever you
is.
want. I mean, it's nice to an extent because you can experiment with different like party members and stuff like that, and you can play around with different Pokemon, and
Yeah,
you're not you don't have to go and grind for hours to bring a Pokemon that you want to try up to a certain level and see if they're even worth it. And so they helped
yeah,
out a lot with that, but they you have to make it harder on yourself if you want the challenge.
yeah,
And for better or for worse, I play the games, I enjoy the games, and
yeah. I
I
still play them. I don't mind the whole like EXP share that you kind of get now. It makes
yeah
it. I think it kind of just makes it better. In the regard that you don't have to kind of grind. You have that
yeah
option to make it challenging, but then you also just have like that casual option, which is pretty cool.
yeah,
But
and I like that. And I these last few generations, I've been kind of doing my own form of like role play where
yeah,
I'll have a whole theme for each my whole party will be one particular type, and a lot of times it's the secondary type of the starter. And so I'll have like an entire fighting party or ghost party. My last game was an entire ghost party. So that adds an element of difficulty when you have somebody who's got like that type that really just fucks up that type
yeah.
or sorry, messes up that type.
No, no, you're good. You're
Okay, good.
good.
And that's where it makes it a little bit more difficult, but it's not the same as like Nuzlocke.
That's exactly that's exactly what it is. But yeah, no, this was a lot of fun. I appreciate you coming on. Phoenix.performance.coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely follow Jordan if you're interested in any of his services. Uh Go to the website. Everything's gonna be plugged in the description. Do you have anything to plug? Anything else at all? I noticed you got your shirt on there.
Yeah, representing. Um, yeah, no, I don't have anything necessarily else to plug. I would say yeah, definitely just follow us on Instagram and join our Discord. It's free. It's a great community. I'm building it up, and just a lot of like-minded tabletop gamers trying to improve their health. We have a channel called the Fitness Fellowship where we try to help keep each other accountable with their fitness journey, whatever that journey is. And I have a series of freebies called the Healthy Adventurer series. I have a new one coming out probably in the next couple of days, cooking and shopping guide. That'll get dropped in the Discord first, and then I'll make it go public. And yeah, go ahead and join the Discord. Again, it's on my Instagram page. And if you are interested in just learning more, don't hesitate to reach out just through DMs. You can email me, and yeah, we can have a conversation, and then we can hop on a call and see if anything is right. I'm not gonna try to sell you and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the Discord is fun. I popped in a couple times now. I'm in there as well. So the Discord is fun. You guys just do random like what are you playing as well. So it's not even necessarily just around like your service. It's kind of just a hangout. So
Yeah,
I recommend it.
yeah,
It'll be in the description as well of everything. Cause
nice.
like I said, I do pop in and it is pretty fun in there. So
Yeah, I like it. I'm trying to make it more like tabletop ish and less fitness ish, and still have that fitness feel, like especially with the Fitness Fellowship channel.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I want it to be like just an open community, and eventually build it up to where we can have like game finding, like matchmaking type stuff, or if people want to play D&D but they don't have a party, they can join someone else's game. But that's
Yeah.
kind of on the pipeline.
Yeah. I know. I mean, I can see it happening though. I'm sure it'll get there soon.
Yeah,
But
hoping so.
yeah, no, I appreciate it, Jordan. Thank you for coming on, and everybody, make sure you definitely give a follow and join.
Hey, Chris, I appreciate it. It was great, and yeah, you have a wonderful night.
You as well. Thank you.
All right, bud. Thank you.